In November of 2014, I was lying in bed next to my husband when I received a phone call that would change my life forever. My husband had been accused of molesting a child. I was shocked and devastated and so confused. He swore that the accusations were false, and after a lot of internal struggle, I believed him. But a few days later, when he was arrested and officially charged, the weight of everything that we were about to go through came crashing down, and I decided that it was too much for me. I found a bottle of sleeping pills, and I took what was left in the bottle. Shortly after I took those pills, my sister phoned, and immediately she knew that something was wrong. She hung up the phone, called the ambulance, and came right over. The next 2 years of my life were complete hell. Every move that I made was watched and judged by the people in the small town that I lived in. My whole life was on trial. I received countless text messages, phone calls, emails, voicemails, you name it, that ranged from mildly rude and invasive to incredibly mean and hurtful. Almost 2 years after the initial accusation began the official trial, and the worst happened. He was found guilty. In just 2 short months, he would go to jail, and I would become a single mom. Just when I thought that things couldn't get any worse, they did. The night that he went to jail, I was clearing off his phone, getting it ready to sell, when I found evidence that he had been having multiple affairs for the entire duration of our marriage, including the last 2 years when I had stood by him at such a high cost. I was crushed. My heart shattered. In that moment, I did not care if he was innocent or guilty. I just knew that my marriage was over. And that decision was reaffirmed to me 2 months later when he did finally admit his guilt. For the next several days, I was completely catatonic. I laid in bed and shut the world out. I sent my children to my sister's house because I couldn't bear to look at them. Every time I saw them, all I saw was the many ways that I was going to fail them. I knew that I couldn't stay in bed forever and that eventually I had to get up and live my life. But I had no idea how. This giant pile of crap that my life had become seemed like such an insurmountable obstacle. I was sure that I would never be happy again. Fortunately, I was wrong. And that very rarely happens, so that was a really big deal. I learned a very simple formula for how to be happy, even when it seems like you shouldn't be, and today I'd like to share that formula with you. Step 1. As a young child, I was taught that if you're ever feeling down, you should count your blessings, and that's a sure way to make you feel better right away. So I tried. I looked around, and no matter where I looked, I could not find a single thing to be grateful for. My children didn't feel like blessings. They just felt like one more responsibility on my ever-growing list of responsibilities that I had no idea how I was going to take care of. I had had the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom up until this point, and now I had to find a job and leave my babies at home. Some concerned citizen decided that my landlord, who lived out of town, needed to be made aware of my situation. And after she phoned to confirm the details with me, she decided that it was time for her to sell my house, forcing myself and my children to move back to my childhood home that my ex-husband and I owned. The house is very, very old and quite literally falling apart. So to say that I was unhappy about that situation would be a massive understatement. But I'm pretty stubborn, so I kept trying. And eventually, I did start to see very small things that made me happy. Things like my local gas station having my favorite flavor of ice cream for when I decided to late night binge eat my feelings. I decided that I would make a list of all the good things in my life. Every day, I told myself I had to write 3 things on that list, and I couldn't repeat anything. Some days, or at first, it took forever to come up with those 3 things. And on the very rare occasion that I could think of more than 3 things, I would save the extras for a day when I couldn't think of anything, which is totally cheating, I know, but I was making the rules, so it's okay. Slowly, I did start to see the good things in my life. Yes, my house was a disaster, but my mortgage payment was substantially lower than what I had been paying in rent, and with my financial situation, that was a huge plus for me. And yes, I had to return to work, but I'd been able to find a job at the local elementary school where my oldest 2 children attended. My youngest was the only one not in school at that point, and my sister was able to watch and help out with her, which was yet another huge blessing in my life. And yes, my kids needed me, but they needed me. And they loved me unconditionally. And their love began to heal the pieces of my broken heart. Step 2. After my suicide attempt, I spent 3 days in the hospital, and not one single person came to visit me. To be fair, I didn't tell anybody I was there. And I really don't know how well I would have actually received visitors. But I do know that I had an awful lot of time to think while I was there. And I came to 2 realizations that seem contradictory, but I promise they aren't, so just stick with me. The first is that I am the only person who can make myself happy. Relying on somebody else to make me happy, I will inevitably be disappointed. People are human. We make mistakes and we hurt each other, usually unintentionally, but sometimes maliciously. Waiting on someone else to make me happy is a losing game. The second realization I had is that I need people. I told you, they seem contradictory, but just stick with me. As I lay there in that hospital bed, I realized that I need people in my life. Specifically, I need people who love and care about me as much as I love and care about them. So I set out to make some mutually beneficial relationships. I highly recommend it. Find someone who encourages you to go for it when that super cute 22-year-old who is way too young for you asks you out for coffee, just because it's the first time she's seen you smile in a really long time. Find somebody who will listen to you rant about your ex-husband and won't judge you for how many F-bombs you drop while doing that, or for being with him in the first place. Find people who will build you up, even when you're not in the room. Find people who will be there for you, unconditionally, with no judgment, when you are spiraling and you reach out for help. Find those people, and then be that kind of person for them. Step 3. We all have bad days. Social media has given us this warped idea that we have to be happy all of the time, and then we feel guilty if we're not. It took me a really long time to realize that it is okay not to be okay. Sometimes when life gives you lemons, the answer is not to make lemonade. Sometimes when life gives you lemons, the answer is to take those lemons, chuck them back in life's face, and crawl back in bed. Or too often we think that being strong means not feeling sad, or not letting life get you down. I disagree. I think that true strength is allowing yourself to experience those negative emotions, to fully acknowledge those feelings, and then to move through them. I try to be as real as possible on my various social media platforms. If I'm having a good day, I'll post about that. If I'm having a bad day, I will post about that too. But what's more important to me is being happy behind the camera. I choose to spend my time and energy on things that bring joy into my life. For me, that looks like being with my kids, spending time with my people, and being involved in theater. For you, it may look completely different, but whatever it looks like, don't waste your energy on things that will not bring you joy. Step 4. I used to send the thumbs up emoji all the time. And until one day, I had a friend who asked me why I was always so upset with her. I had no idea what she was talking about. I came to find out that she viewed the thumbs up emoji as a passive-aggressive, okay, whereas I viewed the thumbs up emoji as an enthusiastic, okay. How we looked at the same thing made all the difference. I chose to look at my horrible situation as an opportunity for change and growth rather than wallowing in self-misery. I made the decision to return to university, something that I had always planned on doing, but wasn't planning on doing it until my kids were much older. I knew that it was going to be hard. but my life was going to be hard no matter what. So I may as well do something that I enjoyed doing. And I was right. It was, and is, very hard. I distinctly remember sitting in the bleachers at my son's football game during my first semester back at university, bawling, having a complete breakdown in public because I was so exhausted and I had no idea how I could possibly go through one more day. I have had several of those days over the last 3 years, and I anticipate that there will be several more to come. But I choose not to focus on those negative days. I choose to instead to focus on the positive. I am teaching my children the value of hard work and dedication. I am teaching them the importance of getting their education early because it is so much harder once you have kids. My children are learning valuable life skills like cooking and cleaning and self-regulation. And they are learning the importance of making time to be with the people that you love. We don't get to spend nearly as much time together as any of us would like to, but we make sure that we make being together a priority. Step 5. When I made the decision to return to university, I was told by so many people what a horrible idea it was. But I knew that it was what was right for me and my family. Returning to university has given me a confidence that I did not know was possible. It's no secret that as parents, we often feel like we get lost in the role of parent, and we lose ourselves and have nothing to offer outside of that role. But what I've learned is that feeling is not exclusive to parents. When you experience something traumatic, it is very easy to feel like that traumatic experience defines your very being and your entire life. Returning to university allowed me to see myself outside of those boxes that I had created. It reminded me that I have a brain and that I really like intellectual conversation. It also reminded me how passionate I am about the arts, theater in particular, and that I have skills and abilities that are allowing me to be successful in my chosen field of study. Returning to university has given me the opportunity to rediscover who I am. When I'm here, I'm not so-and-so's mom or the wife of that guy that did all those awful things. I'm just me. This, for me, was one of the most important steps. Find somewhere that you can be 100% yourself, even if it's only for an hour each week. Join a club, join a team, be in a play, start a band, whatever. Find something that you are passionate about and do it only for you. So here I am, 5 years later, and so many of the things that existed in my life and made it really crappy 5 years ago still exist in my life today. I still have to explain to my kids why they can't see their dad every time they ask. I still have to deal with people asking questions that they have no right to ask. And I still get looks and whispers and stares, although admittedly, those are getting less and less. But I am confident enough in myself and my decisions that those things no longer bother me. I still have a very limited income, and I am busier now than I ever thought was possible. But I am busy doing things that I love with people who I love to be with. I am a single mom to 3 amazing kids. I am a full-time student who at any given time is working a minimum of 2 part-time jobs. I forget things all the time. My kids often look like they got dressed in the dark. My house is still falling apart and quite literally sinking into the ground. And the list goes on and on and on and on. But that's okay, because I have learned that my life does not need to be going perfectly or even well in order for me to be happy. Thank you.